For more expertise and analysis on this game, let's bring up our special guest of the evening, the Fog, joining the show. What's up, Fog? How are you? How's it going? I'm sorry about Monday night, but it's a pleasure to have you here. And congrats on an 8-1 start to the season. That is absolutely remarkable for your team.
No, thank you, man. I'm glad to be on the show. Glad you guys are having me here. I am not disappointed in the loss at all, and I am pleasantly surprised with where Philadelphia is right now because I did not have these expectations for them. I thought the division was so bad. I put a parlay bet on the Chargers, the Eagles, and Bengals to win the division right before the season started. This was not what I expected this division to be. We went from the NFC least the last 5 years back to the NFC beast literally overnight.
I agree 100%. Quick comment here from James Montefusco saying, "What's up, gentlemen?" Thank you very much, James, for commenting. And Fog, before we dive into this, can you tell people where they can find you and your work?
Okay, you can find me on Apple Music and Spotify at Objectively Biased Sports. You can also find me on Instagram at The Fog. And you can find me on my sports page, Objectively Biased Sports, on Facebook. We're also relaunching Fourth Quarter Quarrel, myself and my co-host Brian Emajuru from Be Easy Entertainment and Sports. He unfortunately had to move to the West Coast. Both of us were in transitions of moving. I'm in the transition of moving now. So it's been kind of tough for us to get back on it, but we will be back on and live next week doing our show.
Awesome. Great to hear that. Now, your Philadelphia Eagles are, in my opinion, they're still the best team in the NFC at this time because you beat the other team that has the same record as you. Talk to me about Jalen Hurts, though. Should he be considered as an MVP candidate? I feel like there's a big divide when it comes to this question. And Hank, I want your opinion as well. But we'll start with you here first, Fog. What do you think about Jalen Hurts? Should he be in that discussion? Or do you think that he's playing really well, but it's more of a collaborative effort and Hurts is being lifted by the players that are surrounding him?
Man, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts has shown tremendous growth. And again, I've always argued that football is the consummate team sport. So when you look at his numbers and you look at what he's done and how he's performed both on the ground and then through the air, I'm going to say he's not an MVP candidate at this time. I think it is more a collaborative effort when you look at what the Philadelphia Eagles doing as a team. And again, I had my doubts about Nick Sirianni long before they started winning. And when he turned over the reins to Charlie Stricken in regards to play calling midway through the season last year, you saw a difference. You saw consistency, and you're seeing more of that this year. You're seeing much better coaching outside of the Monday night game where I couldn't figure out they just threw everything they did to get to where they were at 8-0 on that Monday night game. They said, hey, we're going to throw that playbook out the window. And we're going to do this first half on the fly because that's exactly what it did. The fact that they had 14 points was amazing. But again, defense, turnovers, short field opportunities that they had got them those 14 points. But outside of that, yeah, I can't look. Hurts is 6th in completion percentage, but he's 13th in overall passing yards. He's, I think, 10th or 11th in touchdowns, but his touchdown interception ratio has been fantastic. He's 4th, I think, behind Brady, Mahomes, Geno freaking Smith. There's a name I didn't expect to throw in there, and Tua Tagovailoa. So he's doing his due diligence. He's the 3rd in passer rating. I think he's top 5 in a QBR. So he's performing well. but a lot of that has to do with the way this offense is performing. This is a top 5 offense, from the way they run blocking to pass protection for him. I think coaching has been a considerable help in them working the offense around Jalen Hurts' strengths as he continues to develop as a quarterback. So no, I'm not going to give him a nod in the MVP conversation right now. That 8-1 is a team effort.
Yeah, I tend to side with you on that, Fog. I think, make no mistake, I think Jalen Hurts is absolutely fantastic. Like, you look at where the NFL is today, you don't go 8-1 at this point with a quarterback that stinks. Let's put it that way. But with that having been said, I think having A.J. Brown as one of his big weapons has a lot to do with why he's having such a great year. And, Fog, I think you really nailed it on the head. Howie actually did a decent job at drafting a good team around him. And look, this is coming from someone who has been on record for criticizing a lot of moves that Howie made. And make no mistake, I still stand by a lot of my criticisms of Howie, and I'm sure you probably agree with me in that department as well. But with that having been said, I think he's doing an excellent job, but I also think, to put it all in perspective, I wouldn't say he necessarily stands out as somebody that's like carrying a team to win, even though he's definitely been great. I think I think it really goes hand in hand, essentially, is what I'm saying.
That's an interesting point. For me, I would side with you guys as well, but I do think that at the end of the day, to Hank's point, the quarterback play has to be there in order for this team to have this much success. Whether it's been the passing touchdowns, the rushing touchdowns, all in all, I think that Philly is a dominant football team that I'm scared to play twice late in the season. They're definitely very intimidating. But I'm up for the challenge, obviously. But yeah, Hank, I guess why don't you take the next question here? Because obviously Philadelphia did suffer a tough injury in Monday night's football game.
Yes, they did, and we got to talk about the severity of the injury to Dallas Goedert. What do you think it is at this point, Fog? And who do you feel is the one that needs to step up in his place?
Honestly, I think it's a serious shoulder sprain. Now, the severity of it, it's obviously something big because they put him on the IR. So he's out a minimum of 4 weeks. It's interesting because if he was a famous person, we would know what bathroom he went to go urinate in. But he went to a doctor's. There's so many different people he had to report to at the medical facility for the Eagles, all the way up through the coaching staff and Eagles management, and nobody has any information on what specific shoulder injury he's suffering from. I think they said an AC injury was the last thing I read. I don't even know what that is.
Like an AC joint, no?
Yeah, I'm like, there's nothing that has come out definitively, but what it is I'm going to say we're not going to see him until either Christmas. I think they got a game on Christmas Eve, or January 1st, week 17, which again, depending on where the Eagles are at that point, they might not, if they've already clinched the division or clinched a playoff spot, you might not see Goddard until the playoffs, to be honest with you. As far as who's stepping up, it's got to be the coaching staff. Look, John Skull is their backup tight end, and then they got a rookie behind him. Neither one of these guys are going to be anything that's going to jump off the page and give you top 3 tight end performance the way Goddard is giving you. He's I think second on receptions for the team, third on yards, receiving yards for the team. So it's going to be up to the coaching staff and how they're going to work a game plan around where now you've got Smith, you've got Brown, you need another receiving option. What are you going to do to incorporate, in my opinion, Kenneth Gainwell into the offense? He's there. He's giving you good numbers when you put him on the field. What are you going to do to create that third receiving option that's going to at least give, or multiple third receiving options that are going to be able to give you the productivity that you were getting from Goddard.
That's a good point. I like Dallas Goedert as a tight end. It sucks that he went down like this, but hopefully guys can fill up in their place. Obviously, Fogg, I'm not rooting for you guys, but I mean, obviously, I respect the talent. I respect the competitive nature, and hopefully it's us too at the end there and not Dallas. That would be definitely interesting. But any takeaways from you from this Washington game? Was there anything that you didn't like? Because I thought defensively, the Eagles, maybe they weren't as dominant as they usually were. Because there's been a lot of I know Chauncey Gardner-Johnson had a big interception in this game. He's been a great addition for you guys. But any takeaway from that Washington game?
Outside of the play calling, nothing really. I mean, the players were still out there playing hard. I just feel like I said, they just took the playbook of what was working and said, you know what? Today we're going to try something different. I feel like they're predictable with a lot of their offensive play calling. Right. I feel like they've become a very one-dimensional running team from an aspect of almost everything is geared around a RPO type offense. So when you see there's specific lineups in there that you see, and it's like, okay, I know what I'm going to get when they have this spread lineup, or I know what I'm going to get when they have Gainwell in the backfield as opposed to Sanders. If they're on the short side of the field, I think the only creativity that I've really seen out of their offensive play calling, and I think I saw more of it against Pittsburgh than I did against Washington, which again was a little disappointing, is when they would line up trips and set up like a bubble screen read off of the RPO. I didn't see a lot of that, which I had seen in previous games, where you were actually, it was truly a run pass option, whether you were letting the screen pass go to Devonta Smith or you were handing it off to Sanders up the gut, reading off of what the safety was going to do based on the lineup. So, there was a lot of things that they were normally doing where you would see specific lineups and plays called 5, 6, 7, 8 times during the course of the game, where you were lucky if you saw one in that Washington game. I don't know if they just said, hey, we're going to try something new to throw everybody off. But again, outside of that, and I'm going to chalk it up to being an anomaly because we've got 8 games to say this wasn't what this team was. I didn't see anything really drastic.
I would agree. Defensively, though, defense has been great this year for the most part. Yeah. Can you name 2 to 3 guys that have stood out to you on the defensive side of the ball? Maybe even a player that you weren't expecting to perform this well?
James Bradbury. James Bradbury, he's one guy. I got his numbers right here. He's got 3 interceptions. He had 4 with the Giants last year, and then 3 his previous year with the Giants, and 3 his previous year with the Panthers. So he's already on pace to get more interceptions than he has in his entire career in a single season. 11 pass deflections, I think he's got too, which is already got him up, I think, 7 away from his most with the Giants, which was 18, if I'm not mistaken. So he's been a pleasant surprise in the secondary. Obviously, Gardner-Johnson he's absolutely killing it, leading the team with interceptions. I think he's got 6. But one guy that's really standing out, and he stood out last year and he's standing out this year because he's on pace to actually break his total tackles from last year. He had a $130, I think, last year. He's at 80 right now, and that's TJ Edwards. He's playing fantastic at the linebacker position. The guy is all over the football field. And I think I'm not used to linebackers playing well in Philadelphia. The last time the Eagles had a decent linebacker that played well, I want to say it was Seth Joyner and Byron Evans were the Eagles linebackers in the early 90s.
Oh, with the Buddy Ryan defense.
Yeah, like that's all I could think of. I can't think of any other real solid line. I mean, they had Kirkland there for a couple of years, but again, we're talking late 90s, early 2000s with Kirkland. They really haven't had a solid linebacker core or a linebacker that stood out for a long time.
What about Trent Cole? Wasn't he decent?
Trent
More
Cole,
of the
Jeremiah
edge.
Trotter. Jeremiah Trotter.
Trotter.
Jeremiah Trotter was a guy that, but again, give me a linebacker the Eagles had over the last 10 years that was worth anything. I can't think of anybody. So, and Edwards is a no name. Nobody talks about this guy. This guy, he's in the top 15, I think, in total tackles, top 10 in tackles for linebackers this year. The guy's playing amazing football.
Yeah. Steve Ellis also chiming in saying, what about Trotter? Yeah. Trotter, definitely a good player. Garth Michael Patrick saying hello. Good evening, gentlemen. How is everyone tonight? Go Chargers. Thank you, Garth, for the comment. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is a former Gator. That is correct. Garth is a huge Florida Gators fan. He has a question for you, actually, before we get to Hank's next question. How is my former Chargers guy, Kaiser White, looking?
He's looking. He's filling in nice. I'm going to say. He actually, I think it was the Steelers game. He had a nice play, but again, he's a role player at the moment here.
Hank, you're up, buddy.
All right. So my next question for you is, who do you see as a second half breakout candidate? And by the way, you can give more than one answer for this if you want to, because I'm sure there are probably a number of players that come to mind for you.
There's one guy that I feel, again, if Philadelphia is going to have success now, post the Goddard injury, I said his name already, Kenneth Gainwell. He's got I think he's averaging 4.5 yards per carry. He's averaging 5.6 yards per reception. I think he's got 6 touchdowns already on the year. Get him involved in the game plan. I love Miles Sanders. Don't get me wrong, but a nice 2-back set with Sanders and Gainwell, and you could still run your RPO off of that without Goddard there now. And you get Smith, A.J. Brown, and Quez Watkins. You can still incorporate a lethal passing game. This is where I miss Andy Reid, because Andy Reid would have figured this shit out immediately. So, and I'm not so sure about Sirianni and Stricken and how they're going to figure it out. But Kenneth Gainwell, to me, if they're going to have this second half push without Goddard there, Gainwell is going to have to be one of their big players. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say Gainwell is going to have that second half breakout where people are going to be like, oh, he did it last year. There were games at the end of last season where he exploded. He was a main cog in the reason why they won or were in some of the games they were in. So I'm hoping to see that again this year.
Yeah, and I don't think you guys were getting, to quote you from last year, bombed in the first round of the playoffs. I think you might be doing the bombing if you wind up playing in that, which I don't think you will, since you have the tiebreaker over Minnesota, but there's still a lot of season left. And by the way, I don't know if you saw this. I know the Jordan Davis injury has been a bug, but Linval Joseph signed today.
Yes.
What do you think of that signing?
Again, it's good. It's depth. It's depth. It's what every team needs. It's what every team needs. You want to have depth in your front 7 positions defensively. You want to have depth on the offensive line. And I think Philadelphia and Roseman have remained true into getting that depth, because you're going to need that at the end of the season. You're going to need to have fresh legs going in and out when you hit that grind, especially the grind of the playoffs where the game actually gets tougher and slows down.
I agree 100%. Hank, I know you're very familiar with Linval Joseph. Great player for us that unfortunately we had to let go. I mean,
No, I
Or
liked him,
Giant.
but it was another one of those examples of a defensive tackle that they just could not keep. But that's what it is.
Yeah,
Hopefully we can avoid that with Sexy Dexy, but we'll talk about
Dexter
that.
Lawrence.
Well, damn, yeah, you guys BJ Hill too.
BJ Hill, yep, that's another
When
one that we
he
lost.
went to Cincinnati.
Dalvin Tomlinson.
Thank you,
to the
Gettleman.
Vikings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Fog, you could even go as far back as Cornelius Griffin. I don't know if you remember him from the early.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah. And then he went to formerly known as the Redskins when he went there.
Yeah.
Barry Cofield too.
Barry Cofield. Yeah. Love Dexter, but I refuse to call another man. That's a good one, Steve. Now I'm looking this week, Fog, and you won't get the Frank Reich reunion since he's now fired. But you're going to Indy this week to take on the Colts. Nick Foles is there as a backup. Matt Ryan's been reinstated as the new starter. Again, I know the Chiefs went in there and lost, but I don't think you guys will. I mean, obviously, Jeff Saturday was literally hired off the street from ESPN. I guess what are your expectations for that game? 1 and 2. What do you think out of the you guys 8-1? So 9 games left. No, 9 games left. Yeah, 9 games left. I think right.
No, 8 with 17.
8. That's right.
8 games.
17 games, 18 weeks. It's still throwing me off a little bit. That's a new thing. But out of the 8 games left, what's the toughest game on your schedule?
I expect the Eagles to dominate the Colts. I haven't looked at the spreads yet. I got to look at that. Philly is actually
on the road.
Philly's done me justice on the spreads. They don't. First of all, double-digit spreads. Most NFL teams don't cover, and Philly didn't cover that one Monday night. Thank God I took Washington. It sucked taking Philly money line though in a parlay because God. Man. But I expect them to win that game. The Colts, you saw inspired football, and we see this every time there's a coaching change or a quarterback change mid-season. That next game, the teams play extremely inspired. They went in there and they dominated and took it to the Raiders. Now they're coming home. They're going to be tough. There's going to be excitement in there. Philly's going to have their hands full. But if Philly comes to play the way they've played outside of playing Washington, there's no reason why they can't walk away with a W there. So my expectations is the Colts will be brought back down to reality, and so will Saturday. As far as the tough, there isn't one tough. All these games for Philly are going to be tough. And there's not one that I can point out, but there's 3 games in particular that have me nervous. The Titans, with a Coach of the Year candidate in Mike Vrabel and what he's doing with Tennessee right now. They've played everybody. Outside of that Buffalo debacle, the Tennessee Titans have been quietly just asserting themselves and getting themselves back into contention. The other 2 games are going to be the Giants and the Cowboys. Look, I still don't buy into Daniel Jones. I said he was a clipboard quarterback when he got drafted, and I stand by the fact that he's a clipboard quarterback. He's performing like a clipboard quarterback right now. You look at what he's doing. It's everything that Dable is putting around and working towards his strengths and not allowing him to make anything. You're not making a play unless I approve of that play. So what the Giants are doing right now is a direct reflection on Dable's coaching. And then I look at Dallas, and Dallas shit the bed against Green Bay. There's no reason he should have lost that game. But what you get from Dallas is that blindfold taste test. You don't know if you're going to taste beer, soda, or piss. And that's the way Dallas has played, and that's the way Mike McCarthy has been, quite frankly, after since the Packers won the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's been a mixed bag. You don't know what you're going to get, but I do know divisional games are, Hank, you said it, the toughest games, and we've got 2 left with the Giants and 1 more left with Dallas, and they're both after the Tennessee game.